G'day, welcome to Oly35mm, user-based, quasi-empirical, cheap and cheerful videos on Olympus 35mm cameras. And today we have a nice oldie, a 35EC. And the 35EC was, oh look, I'm taking a bit of a guess, is 1971 here now. The RC came out in, the 35RC that is, came out in 1970, was a rangefinder with fully automatic control, as well as shutter speed automatic control, and fantastic little model. But, you know, there were people out there that wanted a little camera that was a lot easier to use. And I would guess that the Olympus brought this out as an easy alternative to the RC, nice and small, but zone focusing and fully automatic exposure. And a lovely little camera it is. It has a 42mm f2.8 zone focus lens. There actually was two models after this, the EC2 and also the ECR. So they did actually bring out a rangefinder. The R actually stood for, rather than AG for rapid, which some of the other R's stood for, it actually stood for rangefinder. So that was the designation of the rangefinder model. And so I'm guessing that that had the same lens as maybe the 35 RC. But this is a lovely little camera, fantastic little lens on it, really good fun to use. I have to let you know right here and now though, before you get too excited about them, in the bottom you'll find there is a battery container for two PX640 batteries, and they are so hard to get. I managed to get some from Europe. And they're still okay. You can also get little adapters which will fit button cells into the same size as the PX640s, but just be aware of that before you actually decide to run out and buy one of these. Make sure you can get hold of a couple of batteries, or you can find some way around using it, because this camera will not work without batteries, pure and simple. Okay, so not a real lot to tell you about this. It is quite straightforward and quite simple. Zone focusing, and there are four settings in there that have what I call it special markings in orange. That's about 3.5 foot, or a bit over 3 foot, 5 foot, 10 foot, and then infinity. Why would we bother with that? And admittedly, I know that one's not marked orange. Why would we bother with that? Well, because this clever little camera in the viewfinder actually has the markings for them. Now, I'm going to bring this up, and you may or may not be able to see them. If not, I'll get a photograph, and I'll put it onto the video when I finally process it. So yeah, just little zone focusing. So it's really handy, unlike the Olympus Trip where you get no indication of what you've set it to. You actually know where you're zone focusing, which I find quite handy. Also, while we're at it, around here and adjusted by a little piece on the bottom, there's a little holder on the bottom, is a guide number setting for your flash. So you actually have to, depending on what size your flash is, you need to set your guide number if you're going to use a flash. We have an indicator on the top of your battery indicator being good, and when you push the, sorry, I need to wind it on. When you push the button down slightly, a little light will come on, not only in the top here, but actually also in the viewfinder as well. Now, they tell me that there's also a little blue light that comes on when you put a flash on here. Maybe it's not working in this model. I can't get it to work anyway. But they tell me that there's a little blue indicator, so I don't know whether it's where the flash is charged or just when it's on the top, but that's the story. And I believe, I can't remember which one it is, the EC2 or the ECR actually has a green light for the same purpose. You have an ASA dial from 25 through to 800, and that is adjusted just by this little knurled ring just on the top there, so just above the winder. So there's your winder. You need to wind it a few times to go on to the next frame. One thing that I don't like about this camera is that the travel of the shutter button is quite long, and it sort of forces its way back up as well. It's really heavily springed, if that's a word, sprung, very heavily sprung, and it just doesn't feel quite right. But bar that, I have no complaints about this little camera at all. And there is also a locking button here, or a locking lever, which won't allow you to actually press the button down at all. Sorry, I'll wind it on, show you. Press the, whoops, I'll show you. I can press the button down, but when I lock it, it's locked in place. So you'd have to press on it, or it'd have to sit in your handbag with something pretty heavy on it before it actually took a photograph, I think. But there's that locking mechanism there anyway. There's your viewfinder window there, a little window for your automatic aperture, and that just has a little aperture in there, or a little iris in there, that gets larger and smaller as you adjust the ASA setting on the front. On the bottom, you have your film rewind button, and you also have your film rewind actually at the on the bottom, rather than sometimes you'll see them on the top. And it's on the opposite side, because if I open the back for you, you'll see that it is running from right to left. So the film runs from right to left rather than quite often left to right, and I'd say that was fairly obvious in the fact that you wouldn't have been able to fit your viewfinder there very easily if you did it the other way. So I should imagine that it was in the thought of keeping it as compact as possible. You have a little hole to put your rewind button, also you know, the little rewind ring, whatever you want to call that, into, and you also have a tripod button there. So made in Japan, as they all were around that time of the sort of, I forget when they stopped making them in Japan, but you know, probably getting close to the 2000s. So these were made in Japan. Quite a hefty little unit. Not particularly light. I'm not too sure what the weight of it is, but it feels solid in the hand without feeling too heavy. Lovely little camera to use. I like it a lot. Do I like it more than the 35RC? Oh, I don't know. You know, maybe. You know, in some cases when I'm lazy and I can't be bothered setting stuff up and focusing, I'm not a big rangefinder fan anyway. But it really is a different camera, so I wouldn't be comparing them when you buy them. It really is, you either want one or the other, or let's face it, these days with the cost of second-hand cameras, you can probably afford both, so why not buy both? But remember the batteries. Be very, very careful. Make sure you can get hold of some batteries or an adapter that will allow you to actually use the camera if you're going to be using it as a user rather than as a collector. So anyway, that's your lot for today. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.